Why is nobody talking about the fact that the American dream is less attainable than ever? A new article I just read this week shows that the American dream will cost you on average $4.5 million. Do you have $4.5 million bucks? I don't, but I do have a plan to accomplish what I think is the American dream anyway. So I'll share that with you after I talk about how much it costs to retire, to own a home, to raise kids, to own vehicles, to go on vacations, to do everything that people dream of whenever we think about the American dream. And after hours and hours of doing research to make this video for you, it turns out we're actually all wrong about what the American dream was intended to be in the beginning. And so I'll explain what the true intention is behind that term American dream from the person who actually popularized the concept back in the 1930s at the end of the video. So let's open up a spreadsheet and get started. First off, what is the modern day American dream and why is it so expensive? Well, most people today, whenever you talk about the American dream, or if you ask somebody on the street, hey, what do you think about the American dream? How does someone get there? The general reference is going to be towards upward financial mobility, towards a more luxurious lifestyle, basically having and earning and spending more money. And the American dream is this belief that everybody, regardless of where they come from, has the right to accomplish that dream, to chase that dream, to probably have a better standard of living than their parents had. But nowadays, not everyone believes that's true because Americans have really divided opinions over the possibility of the American dream. As it turns out, only 53% of Americans think that the American dream is possible, 41% think it used to be possible, and 6% believe it was never possible. But for the sake of this video, let's assume that it not only is possible, but it is based on these few kind of financial milestones. What are they and how much do they cost? We know the total is $4.5 million, but that seems like such a big number for a study that doesn't even include all the costs of living. It leaves out a lot of the living expenses that we need with modern day life, including things like food and insurance. And so this isn't even an all-encompassing number. These are just milestones. The 8 milestones in this study include retirement, owning a new car, having and paying for a wedding, raising 2 kids plus paying for their 4-year colleges, owning a home, paying for pets, having an annual vacation, and paying for a funeral. Let's start off in my wheelhouse, retirement, because to me, I think this can be a little bit of a misleading number. First of all, it's refreshing to see the retirement number be as big as it is, because I think $1.6 million is a lot more realistic than some other articles I see online. You see these kinds of savings recommendations of like, save 2 times your salary by 30, save 4 times your salary by the time you're 40, save 8 times your salary by the time you're 65. And it's like, how does that add up to a retirement amount that we can actually live off of? Thankfully, they've done a basic adjustment for inflation and they factored in a withdrawal rate that's pretty reasonable, a 4% per year withdrawal rate. And as a result, they came up with this $1.6 million figure. If you do that math and have a safe withdrawal rate of 4% on 1.6 million, that's living on $64,000 per year. Not a lavish lifestyle, but it's right there around what the median income is right now for Americans. So it's a very safe, respectable number. I appreciate this, but it is a big number. And I don't think that means it needs to be a scary number because it doesn't mean you have to earn $1.6 million exactly then to be able to retire. This is just the ending amount that you need. So it's not that the American dream costs you this much, it will require this much, but because of the power of compound interest, we can reach $1.6 million a lot easier than it probably seems. Let's say you start investing at 25 years old and then you retire at 65. You've got a 40-year time window to amass the $1.6 million. A quick trip to the investment calculator shows me that if you've got that much time to invest, you don't actually have to invest that much every single month. If you invest just $380 per month, you'll end up with that $1.6 million. That means that the total contributions you made, the total amount that you put into the account isn't anywhere near 1.6 million, it's 182,000. So the big fat scary $4.4 million of the American dream is actually a lot closer to $3 million out of pocket right off the bat because you've got the power of compound interest. If you're not 25 years old and you're starting later in life, like most of us do, that's going to require more from you, but this is kind of the ideal situation. Next up is a wedding, and the average cost of a wedding nowadays apparently is $44,000. I feel like that's a lot of money. You can basically spend whatever you want on a wedding, but I'm sure you can also spend a lot less than this and still have a successful marriage in the end. So if you're serious about your financial future, maybe cut back on the fancy wedding expenses. Then here's another controversial one. Raising 2 children. Almost $1 million, $832,000. Allegedly, the cost of raising 2 children from 0 to 17 years old for a middle-income married couple is about $611,000. Then if you want to pay for the kids' college on top of that, it's another $220,000 for a total of $832,000. I think you can probably do this again for a lot cheaper. You can probably not spend as much to raise the kids. You can for sure not pay for your kids' college if you don't want to. Our financial situation as adults and as parents is a lot like being on a plane that's about to go down. The oxygen masks drop down. You're always supposed to help yourself with your own oxygen mask before you help the people around you. The reality is you're not going to easily get a loan to pay for your own retirement, but if your kids really want to go to college, they can get things like scholarships and grants and loans and then pay them off as quickly as possible so they don't start off on the wrong foot. And that way, you're not paying $220,000 for them to go to a 4-year college. So I wouldn't be surprised if we could knock off another $300,000-$400,000 from this figure to get down to something that's a little bit more realistic for most of us. We went from 4.4 down to 3 million. Now we could be potentially down to 2.7 million as far as actual out-of-pocket costs for the American dream. Next up is a depressing one though, owning a home. Apparently by their numbers, if you buy an existing home with financing, putting 20% down, having a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, the overall cost to do that is $929,000. Basically $1 million to have a home. But the silly thing is this doesn't include homeowner's insurance, property taxes, maintenance on the house, which we all know if you own a house is a crazy number at times, HOA fees. It doesn't include a bunch of what it means to be a homeowner. And so this is not an all-inclusive number. I would for sure plan on over $1 million if you want to be a homeowner in the US and not live in some very small town somewhere. If you're living in any major metropolitan area, it is for sure over $1 million to be a homeowner. And here's another number that looks way too big to be true, owning a car. So 2 adults, 2 cars, a total of $811,000. The methodology behind this study says that they basically wanted to embody the dream of always having new or very close to new cars. And so they took like the average car payment and just said, you're gonna have a payment forever. And so that's just the monthly payment figure. It doesn't include the cost of fuel, registration, insurance, maintenance fees, all that kind of stuff. So yes, it's a very high number. And no, most of us aren't gonna be buying a new car every few years. But even with that said, this overall number could be pretty representative of what we actually spend over the course of our lifetimes driving vehicles, even if we're driving older vehicles, because then we can factor in things like fuel, registration, insurance, maintenance fees, that kind of stuff. I think for a lot of us car enthusiasts, it's worth it to pay this kind of money, but if it's not your absolute passion in life, it's not worth spending a lot of money on cars. It'd be like me spending a bunch of money on clothes. It's just not worth it. I don't get enough of a buzz off of it. It doesn't feel like it's adding that much value to my life. I'll continue to shop at Eddie Bauer, or I'll buy these hats from Mammoth Headwear that are the only ones that actually fit my giant head. They're actually made for people with giant heads like me. Designer fashion is lost on me. But cars, not so much. Then here's another figure that we can probably fudge a bit for a number of reasons. Taking a yearly vacation, $179,000. So if you're having a yearly vacation between the ages of 22 and 85, that's 63 vacations. So they're factoring in an average vacation cost out of pocket to you of $2,843. For most of our lives, we haven't spent that much money on vacations ever. Last year we did, because last year we did a bunch of vacations, so it was a really weird year for us. But I think you can probably get by on spending less than this personally. I know some people really love travel and they love to see the world and spend a lot of money on trips, and so maybe this is a really small number to you because maybe your budget is 10 times more than this, but it's another one that you can turn up or down depending on your preference and how you want to spend your money. Speaking of that, owning a dog or cat, $36,000. I feel like this is either way over or way under what people have as far as what they choose in their life, because we don't have any pets. So for us, the cost of owning a pet is absolutely zero. This is like $36,000 in my bank account that I don't have to ever worry about spending unless we suddenly get a pet. Other people might spend 10 grand on some special purebred dog. And so totally depends on you and your lifestyle. I think this is one that you can cut back if you want, but you know, we're not cutting back too much. This is the American dream after all. And then of course, dreams come to an end and people die and you got to pay for a funeral. So $8,500 for a funeral. So depending on how early you get started when it comes to saving and investing money and when you buy a house and how much money you want to spend on your kids and all that kind of stuff, I think the American dream could cost $4.4 million, but it could cost as little as $2.4 million. And when the average bachelor's degree holder in the US earns about $2.8 million during their career, you've got a lot of potential to live a truly great life. If you've got a couple of spouses that both earn 2.8, maybe you've got a household lifetime income of $5.6 million, in which case you're way over the threshold for even these kinds of milestones. But is that even what the American dream is about? Nowadays, we're so focused on things we can buy and hold and own and flaunt and drive and wear that it seems only logical that we're going to narrow down the focus of the American dream to be, can I make enough money to live the kind of lifestyle that I want? It's very focused on me, my choices, my income, that kind of thing. But when this term was first popularized by an author back in 1931, his name was James Truslow Adams, the meaning of what the American dream was is completely different than that take is now. It seems funny that almost 100 years ago, he came to a similar conclusion to a lot of us nowadays, which is that America is actually losing its way by prizing material success over all other values. That America back in the 1930s had treated money as the end goal, as the value. And so in his writings about the American dream, he was specifically bashing that. He said that the American dream is not a dream of motor cars and high wages merely, but a dream of social order in which each man and each woman shall be able to attain the fullest stature of which they are innately capable, and be recognized by others for what they are, regardless of the fortuitous circumstances of birth or position. For that author, Adams, the American dream was actually embodied best in the main reading room of the Library of Congress, which sounds kind of odd at first because I'm thinking it's like a Porsche in the garage and a mountaintop view. But here's why he thought that was the American dream, not Porsches and mountaintops. Adams said that main reading room in the Library of Congress was amazing because old and young, rich and poor, black and white, the executive and the laborer, the general and the private, the noted scholar and the schoolboy could sit together reading at their own library provided by their own democracy. It has always seemed to me, Adams continued, to be a perfect working out and a concrete example of the American dream. The means provided by the accumulated resources of the people themselves, a public intellect enough to use them, and men of high distinction themselves a part of the great democracy, devoting themselves to the good of the whole, uncloistered. So for him, it was about the success of the country, about our material success, so we could celebrate that together as a United States, as a collective moral character, common well-being, well-being that's held in common with everybody around you and mutually supported by the people around you. It was just MLK Day recently, and it reminds me of his I Have a Dream speech. It'd be like you saying, I have a dream that one day my two little children will be judged not by the content of their possessions or their bank account, but by the quality of their character. So the American dream in a real way was much more about a collective amount of success and sharing and equality amongst everybody that wasn't then segmented up into a bunch of individual groups and tribes and us versus them kind of ideology. I think in our pursuits of improving our lifestyle and improving our family's life and providing and protecting them, if we can do that in a way that also provides for and protects the people around us in a way that brings them with us, that doesn't segment us out, no matter what side of the table you're on. I don't care if you're right, left, middle, up, down, sideways. The fact that the American dream had this focus on us together, not us versus them, I think is a critical element of it that we've kind of lost nowadays. So let's think about that as we go forward in our lives. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.